In response to your post, I will tell you I am married to a liar. I cannot wait, in all caps, to file a separation. Will be a great day for me.
Yes.
And then a couple of messages down, she writes, I've been through it once before, but I just can't handle the lies. It's my thing.
That's correct.
And then going over to the next page of the stuff that you found on the computers, Joanna Madonna sent a message to a Eugene Mosley on June the 13th of 2013 at 8:04 p.m.
Yes, sir. Except these are Facebook returns we're looking at here.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Facebook messages or inbox messages, because I think we had one of the witnesses say if you don't have Facebook, you can still send an inbox message if you're not connected as a friend and things like that.
Yes.
I don't know if they still use that service, but at least they were at that point in time. Now, towards the end of that message, Ms. Madonna tells Eugene Mosley, in the meantime, you should know that I've asked him to leave on several occasions already, and he keeps threatening to kill himself. That's the reason I started going back to Al-Anon. So that's your Happy Tuesday update.
Yes, sir.
And then Eugene Mosley responds back to her in the beginning. Having a conversation with her father, says, Dad, what do you want for Father's Day? He says, I would like you to make me a cheesecake and buy me a bottle of beer.
Yes. That was not really a conversation. It's a statement she's making.
It's a statement she's making, but she's, I guess, letting other people know what her conversation was with her father.
Yes, sir.
Like people do on Facebook. This is what happened to me. This is what my kid said. You know, haha, this is funny. That kind of thing.
Yes, sir.
And then on June the 15th at 10:31 a.m., Miss Madonna posts saying, I don't think anything is worse than an old timer saying they are sober when they are really drinking. I don't think there's anything more repulsive.
Yes, sir.
And then later on that afternoon, and June 15th being the day of the incident, she updates her status again saying, a wonderful visit with my nephew. God willing, I will come back in a couple of weeks and we might even go shopping. If you must know, it is my intention to spoil the crap out of him.
Yes, sir.
And then the following day at 10:27 p.m.,
That would be on the 15th also.
that would be on the 15th also?
6/15/2013.
Oh, because I'm reading the UTC and you have to go back for 4 hours. Thank you, sir. So on that same day at 10:27 that night, she posts, putting myself and my girls first, not an easy thing to do.
Yes.
And then later on that night, it seems to be in the middle of the night at 3:39 that morning, she changes her profile picture to show a picture of her father, if you're familiar with the pictures. I'm sure you've been through all of them.
Yes, sir.
And that's a picture of John Madonna.
Holding a beer, yes.
He said holding a beer.
It looks like a
Yeah.
beer bottle.
And we already went through the IP location stuff. You said the same IP that was being used to access the Facebook accounts of Michelle Lopez and Joanna Madonna is the same one that deleted Jose Perez's Facebook account on June the 15th of 2013.
Yes.
In your search through these computers, you were able to locate, this is on page 47 of your report, able to locate a family assessment.
Yes.
And what does that appear to be to you through your reading of it? Or if you've read it before?
This particular one came off of the other computer.
Of the laptop?
Yes.
And that laptop appears to be used by Rachel Lopez. Let's looking at the documents and pictures on that laptop.
Yes, sir. And it appears to be some sort of a school paper on psychology pertaining to the family.
And it contains just a bunch of the family's history and things like that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to tell when this document is created?
I have a creation date of 2/24/2013, and I have a second one. There's two documents, similar document, 2/15/2013, so some modifications to it.
And that could just be her editing that document, and I'm assuming for a school paper, you're going to write it multiple times and change things and make corrections and spell checking and things like that.
That's correct, and it was resaved the second time under a slightly different name, so it kept both copies.
And in this document that you found on this computer, looking at page 48 of 79,
Objection is to the contents of a laptop computer document apparently composed by Michelle Lopez or Rachel Lopez.
Y'all introduced it. Go on.
and in this document, do you see the paragraph saying Joanna remembers her childhood to be disturbed?
Objection, Your Honor. This computer wasn't entered into evidence.
Your Honor, this computer was searched along with it. It was taken. It's still in evidence at this point. And all that we've done at this point through this witness is talk about things that were discovered on these computers.
There were two computers. One of the computers was put into evidence. That's the one that the defendant used. The one that he's now talking about was not put into evidence, and the only testimony about it was that it was primarily used by the daughters in the household and not the defendant. And that's why it wasn't put into evidence. So having him testify to something that is not in evidence and is a hearsay is, in the state's opinion, objectionable.
Rachel already talked about this document, and I think this corroborates her document. It corroborates her testimony.
Go on.
If you could read the paragraph where it says, Joanna remembers her childhood to be disturbed.
Yes, sir. Joanna remembers her childhood to be disturbed. She was sexually abused by a neighbor at the age of 5, and her father drank persistently from the time she was born until 1989. She says this dysfunction caused her to develop an eating disorder to cope with stress. When she was 22, her mother passed away from a stroke. Joanna recalls being raped at the age of 16, 18, and 24, and says she was under the influence all 3 times. She says that she still suffers from the effects of these rapes today. She says she has post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and gets anxiety when around men she doesn't know.
Can you just go to the last paragraph, starting with today, and read that paragraph? It's on page 51 of 79 of your report.
Oh, there we go. Today, the family still continues to struggle somewhat due to financial instability. There seems to be less income coming in that is sufficient for every bill and activity needed to be taken care of. I find it hard myself to trust in God solely on all finances because I have seen my mom struggle with money for a long time. This particular factor influences me now because I want to have financial stability. I see advice on finances and spending and try to give my mom the same advice that I have received. Our family is continuing to stay connected to each other. As my sister Michelle and I further in college, her family environment has changed and is, skipped a sentence. As my sister Michelle and I further in college, my mom has a hard time seeing us grow and mature into adults. Even though she has Isabel around, her family environment has changed and is changing drastically, and she is learning how to allow this to happen. John is even getting older, and as a family, we have to prepare for the time that he will pass. Jose also has health issues that affect us, a whole family unit, and we must also prepare if anything were to happen to him. We, however, will continue to hold on to each other and look out for what's best for each other.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Looking at page 77 of 79 of your report,
Yes, sir.
you list out there some of the key words that you use in conducting the search of these computers.
Yes, sir.
And one of those is Jose P4348 at yahoo.com.
Yes, sir.
And that's what you believe to be Jose Perez's email address.
Yes, sir.
And you list out various other search keywords that you used, and one of those is benefits, correct?
Yes.
And is the only mention or keyword or web history that you saw for benefits the one that you've already talked about with Ms. Shandles about clicking on that link that day?
Is that the only benefits related?
Yes.
No, there's other things pertaining to benefits that it comes up in different areas on the computer.
when you went through and we showed the jury on the screen the chart of some of the text messages that were going back and forth and emails and things like that, those weren't all of the text messages that you found, correct?
That's correct.
Did you separate those specific text messages out just for that presentation at that point in time?
Yes.
Okay. But do you have a counting of the other text messages that were found that weren't used for that particular presentation?
The total text messages I don't have a count of. It's a lot.
Okay. But you did create a chart or a graph to help you for topics that you thought were germane to this investigation, correct?
Yes, sir. I can't put everything, like for instance, on a phone or a computer out there, so I have to narrow it down to things that are maybe important to defense or maybe important to the prosecution.
And like you said, you try to cover both of them because we're entitled to stuff that will exculpate Miss Madonna, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And I'm going to start going through that log now, so if you can follow along as best you can. I don't believe this one is numbered, but I'll be asking you about text messages, your gridded chart here.
The Excel sheet with
Yes, the Excel sheet.
And do you know if that's the large one or the small one?
I don't know.
Okay.
Let's say it's the large one, and then hopefully we can corroborate each other's wherever we're looking at. There was an email sent from Jose Perez's email to Diane Wilson at ABC. Do you know who she is? You know who Diane Wilson is?
I don't know her. No, I don't know her, but I know of the email you're speaking of.
And that email it indicates that Joanna Madonna is trying to reach out to Diane Wilson at the ABC News for help with problems that she was having at the VA hospital, correct?
That's correct.
And I believe like she's her is a troubleshooter or stuff like that, and people have problems and they want to get some publicity on it. They may go to her and say, hey, this is a story you might want to pay attention to.
Yeah, I don't know that, but that seemed to be what was going on, yes.
And that was on July the 3rd of 2013.
You're looking at the, if I may, sir, you're looking at the long list, and I can follow you on my computer if I can turn my computer on.
That'll be fine if that will help.
May I grab my computer, Your Honor?
Yes.
It's the first one I got? Is that the one you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And that's the first email sent to Diane Wilson for assistance and talking about Jose's story and problems that he was having with the VA.
That's the first one I noted, yes.
And then she keeps going on to say that that she had faxed over 15 pages worth of stuff, and they continue corresponding back and forth for that entire month of January of 2013, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then, I think we've already covered this, and I don't want to ask you the same question again, so bear with me 1 second. Already talked about this one, but on June the 14th at 6:25 and 6:37.
Yes, sir, looking for it now.
Oh, just let me know when you're there.
I'm on June 14th, and which time?
8:25 and 8:37, back to back from the Motorola CDMA.
At PM?
I'm assuming so, 1837.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Jose and I are separating. He is moving to Florida. Don't say anything on Facebook.
That's correct.
And then on 6/15 at 15:47, on my printed copy, it's on on the next page.
Yes, sir, I'm on that page.
I guess first thing that morning at 6:39, Joanna Madonna updates her Facebook status saying, I'm headed for a swim before my trip to South Carolina for the day. I am praying to bring some healing and love to my family while they face this ordeal. F cancer. Continued prayers and positive thoughts for my nephew.
Yes, sir.
And then you can see at about 8:21 that morning, she sends a message to Chad saying that she's going to be in her car for the next 4 hours.
Yes, sir.
And she's already texting people. She had called Rachel earlier that morning at 7:27, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then at 15:47, she sends a message to Chad saying, I will let you know how things turn out later, ... I feel you, ... in my soul. Just
Yes, sir.
to give the complete text. But she says, I'll let you know how things turn out later.
Yes, sir.
7 in the afternoon, saying, wonderful visit with my nephew. God willing, I will come back in a couple of weeks, and we might even go shopping. And that's the message that we had talked about before.
Yes, sir.
And then about an hour after that, she sends a message to Michelle saying, I might just go for a ride with him instead.
Yes, sir.
Before that, at 6:10, she says, what time are you leaving, to Michelle?
Yes, sir.
And then at 6:17, she says, I might just go for a ride with him instead.
Yes, sir.
And you had mentioned that though we don't necessarily have all the messages that are going back and forth, where they're deleted or the phone doesn't have any memory. There's reasons why you wouldn't have all of the text messages here, correct?
Yes, some of the text messages that we're reading are deleted, but we don't necessarily say that we have all of them. There could be one that was deleted and got overwritten by another one.
And that depends on a litany of variables, the connection service, a brand of phone, and quality of the phone, and things like that.
Could be a whole lot of things, sir.
And on the next day, and on my next page, at 6:16, at 6:45 in the morning, we see an incoming message from a Danica saying, OMG, exclamation point, did he hurt you, question mark.
Yes, sir.
Then later on that morning, at 8:58 in the morning, there is a web search done from that phone that says reasons for a restraining order in North Carolina. Correct? Oh.
Yes, just a second, sir.
Oh, no.
What time was it, sir? You said the morning?
In the morning, 6:58.
I went the wrong direction. Yes, sir.
Okay. So at 6:58, there's a search for reasons for restraining order, and then it looks like that person clicked on some Google search results and went to different, appears to be law or lawyer websites, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was June the 16th, correct?
Yes, 2013.
And this was the day after the event with Jose Perez, correct?
Yes, after death.
After the death of Jose Perez. Also, there's a web history of how to file a separation agreement in North Carolina.
Yes, sir. 6:59 a.m.
Yes, sir. Thank you. June 16th as well.
Yes, sir.
Then going further down there till on June 16th at 8:38, there's an outgoing text message to Michelle,
Yes, sir.
and it says, make sure the doors are always locked from now on.
Yes.
Right after that at 8:41, there's a text message from that phone to Lisa Heron saying, hey, Jose moved down to Florida. Can you watch Isabel tonight at 7?
Yes.
And then a message at 8:42 to Chuck Pritchard, Jose moved down to Florida. Don't say anything to Isabel yet.
Yes.
Going over to my next page, it is June the 16th, the day after Jose's death, at 9:33. There's a message to Danica. It got crazy, but I will be feeling better very quickly.
Yes, sir.
And then at 9:55, also to Danica, it was awful. He hit me, ... took his suitcase, ... threatened to kill himself and walked out, and this time I didn't chase him.
Yes, sir.
And then there appears to be some kind of, I'm not sure if it's a Facebook message or an update status. So you see where I'm at on June the 16th of 2013 at 11:30 that morning.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just tell your story. I asked Jose to leave. I feel shaky, but it says bye. I know how strong I really am.
Yes, sir. It's a Facebook post.
Then that morning at 10:48, there's a message to a David Whitcomb. And this message says, "Hey, can you come put a lock and chain on my front door? Jose moved to Florida last night and now I feel vulnerable."
Yes, sir.
And at 10:59, there's another message to Danica.
Is it 10:50?
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry, it'd be the one after that. It'd be 10:49.
10:49, saying, "He got it worse. I'm fine. I'm tough."
Yes, sir.
And then at 10:50, around the same time, a text message to Rach, who I'm assuming is Rachel. "Yes, I put $15 on your card. Keep the front door locked at all times, even when you're home."
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if I can have one moment.
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. You checked the Acer computer for viruses and in order to see whether it had been hacked in any way.
Yes, I did.
And was there any evidence from what you saw that there was any kind of virus or any kind of manipulation from outside, a hacking on this computer?
None that I found.
Now, you did find that evidence that there had been a Facebook page for Jose Perez, correct?
Yes.
You don't know who established that page, do you?
No, I don't.
And was there any evidence that you found on the computer that it was ever used by Jose Perez?
If it was very limited. There was very little use of it.
The only thing that you can definitively say is that that Facebook page was shut down after his death. Is that correct?
Immediately after a post saying that he moved to Florida, it was taken offline, or it was deactivated.
And the searches that, or the information on the computer that Mr. Thomas talked about, the exchanges about benefits and the defendant's efforts to get VA benefits for her children, and talking about it with the ABC person,
Yes, ma'am.
news person, those were done on Jose's email?
Correct. They were through his email, and some of them have Joanna's name at the bottom.
So she signed them, but it was on his email?
It looks that way, yes.
And the logins that we talked about yesterday into Jose Perez's PayPal account, those were done after Jose's death as well, weren't they?
Yes.
And there was money transferred out of Jose Perez's PayPal account. To whom was it transferred?
Joanna.
And when you looked at and reviewed the temporary internet files that you found that 8 new files had been created on June 16th, 2013 at 5:55 p.m. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, which files are you referring to?
The temporary internet files?
I think you're referring to some new folders that were created, yes, from the use, yes.
Right. And all of those files were empty, correct?
Yes.
And that indicated to you that that internet history had been deleted?
Yes.
So we don't have any idea what had been deleted after his death, looked at and deleted after Jose's death.
I did recover some of it. Doesn't mean you recovered everything, but yes.
Okay. And the one thing that you recovered that had apparently been deleted was that supposed letter from Martha Hernandez, is that correct?
No.
What was recovered?
Specifically, I'd have to look at my notes real quick if I could. It was some of it's going to be the searches that I was testifying to. Those went as soon as Internet Explorer got shut down. They got deleted. So your cheesecake and let me go to the date here. My notes real quick. I'm sorry. So the Raleigh trash hours, those pertaining ones, the cheesecake ones, any of those last ones that were used?
Looking for the dump hours.
Yes.
And Mr. Thomas asked you yesterday about a number of bits of information that you found on the computer having to do with pornography and I can't remember which all ones he referenced, but sort of nasty things having to do with sex. When you looked at Mr. Perez's email account, did you find a whole lot of spam on that account?
Yes, ma'am. And the ones that were referenced yesterday were pertaining to the email account and not the computer. There's a number of spam emails of all different types that have come into that email account, even up till the June of this year.
How could things still be coming into his email account 2 years after his death?
It's not closed, and it's all spam related, it appears, coming through.
And so all of that stuff that Mr. Thomas was referring to as far as the sex things, that was all email spam that we were talking about yesterday?
It appears that way. I don't see any conversations going pertaining to any of it. It's just a lot of click on this link, girls here, things of that sort.
So it wasn't internet searches or anything that anyone, whether on Mr. Perez's email or off Mr. Perez's email, was actively seeking out. It was stuff that was just not getting filtered as it came in.
I didn't see anything that said that somebody was searching for any of that. It's just emails that were coming in and from different sources that appeared to be spam to me.
And there was, most of that stuff, if not all of it, hadn't even been opened once it came into the email account. Is that correct?
A lot of it had not been opened because the account had sat idle for an extended period of time.
Even before his death?
I didn't take count to see how many had been opened and unopened. I don't know that they necessarily note that. When they give us the emails, they just say, here they are. Possibly it could have been opened and then marked as unread. You can change it back to unread, so there's no way to really know for sure.
But he did have over 1,000 unread emails in the account that had come in as spam, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And the Facebook page that had been set up for Mr. Perez, that was linked to the Yahoo email account, is that correct?
Yes, it was.
And so anyone who had access to his Yahoo email account could manipulate his Facebook as well?
Yes, you could reset the password and have a new password sent out if you wanted to, if you didn't have it already.
I have no other questions.
Thing along those lines?
Yes, Your Honor. When you were talking to Ms. Shandles about the emails to Diana Wilson, the troubleshooter, she's including her husband in when she's seeking this help, correct?
Yeah, that's the way it looks, yes, sir.
And she makes them aware that this is Jose's wife, Joanna Madonna.
Yes, sir.
And she says that she is a teacher and her husband is a retired district attorney in Florida. And that's when she starts writing and wants to let her know. She even lets her know that, I guess she's just seeking help or seeking a story or seeking attention for problems that Jose was having, correct?
I believe so. I don't remember the district attorney part, but everything else she said yes, and I can look if you'd like me to.
It is on the very first page of that Excel spreadsheet.
Yes, sir.
And so you do see it now where he says my husband was a retired district attorney and he was seeking help and I'm trying to
Yes, sir.
help that happen. In regards, I think you said yesterday for the internet search history, that computer itself was set up to remove history whenever it shut down.
Yes.
And that was done before this event happened, correct?
Yes, I couldn't get the specific date, but it had been, for a period of time, it had been set that way.
And as far as the Facebook profile, did you not pull Jose's full Facebook profile and get all of his pictures and friends and things like that?
The paperwork was served on it. I never received it.
Okay. So you tried to, but you were unable to do so.
If it came in, I didn't get it.
Okay. And in regards to the person that he was getting a message from, and then Miss Madonna said, "This is my husband," you said that person did have a Facebook profile that has changed pictures and changed backgrounds and things like that even after this occurred, correct?
Yes, sir.
When you can get spam without giving someone your email address, correct? Can you get spam without giving someone your email address?
It's got to get captured somehow, and it could be a number of ways.
And one way that it happens is if you go to a porn website and give them your email, then it's probably going to get circulated to every porn account, and that's where you may start getting stuff in, correct?
That would probably happen, yes.
And for an Ashley Madison account, if you're on there looking around, you're going to have to give them an email to register for that and start the process of looking through the site, correct? Even if you don't do anything on the site.
I'm sure they do have a requirement for an email, yes, on that.
If you can go to your report on page 39 of 47.
I believe I'm on the right page, yes, sir.
And I think you had told Ms. Shandles that there weren't any searches for this porn, but looking at your report, it says several IEF search hits on the unallocated area of the disk include search strings for. So what does that mean?
Yes, okay, there's a little section that is not consistent with the rest of the computer. Very small space on that hard drive. There's, it looks like a random search engine or something did a whole bunch of searches on the same topic. For instance, there's like life insurance is one of them. There's a whole series of them. Problem is none of those search engines are active on that computer at all. It doesn't appear that they came from the normal use. It possibly could be from, some other device or something that was hooked up. I never could narrow it down to, it's not consistent with the rest of the computer.
And were you ever able to get any information or try to get any information from Ashley Madison in regards to Jose Perez having an account?
I didn't look at that, no, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Brother Ms. Shannon.
Mr. Brookerson, any business that you might buy something from online, it might be some, I don't know, socks or underwear or a shirt or a pair of shoes, that business can sell your information that they've collected to any other business, can't they?
In a lot of cases, yes.
And some of those businesses could be not very nice businesses.
Potentially, yes.
And they could start sending you spam even though you never had the slightest connection with them.
Yes, ma'am.
I have no other questions.
To
Mr.
that
Br-
limited amount, what you asked a question of that.
One question, Your Honor. You don't know Amazon or Best Buy or any reputable site to sell your information to a porn website and then you start getting porn emails. Has that ever been the case?
I'd like to hope not, but that's a big stretch for me to answer that. Not that I know of.
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, sir. You can stand there.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Further, any objection to him being released from his suspended?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor. Thank you, Agent Wilkerson.
Further evidence?
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, the state would call David Freeling.
Left hand on the Bible, raise your right, please. You solemnly swear the testimony you give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Come around and have a seat, please.
Business with you.
Would you state your name for the court, please?
David Freeling.
And would you spell your last name for me?
It's Freehling.
And how are you employed?
I'm a forensic scientist with the North Carolina State Crime Lab, assigned to the Trace Unit in Raleigh.
And what does that mean?
I'm a forensic scientist who does trace analysis and examinations.
What is trace analysis?
Trace examinations are paint, glass, gunshot residue, explosives, fire debris.
And what is your educational background before coming to the SBI?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry from the University of Pittsburgh. Prior to joining the State Crime Lab, I worked as a forensic chemist for RJ Lee Group. It's a forensic lab right outside of Pittsburgh. There, I received extensive training on the preparation, analysis, and interpretation of gunshot residue evidence. I analyzed over 400 cases while with RJ Lee Group. I came to the State Crime Lab in 2007 and went through a similar training program. I am a graduate of the Forensic Analyst Academy, and I've analyzed over 1,300 gunshot residue cases for the state of North Carolina. I am a member of the OSAC Subcommittee on Gunshot Residue Analysis. This is a committee of 20 gunshot residue experts from around the nation, and we are tasked with developing and implementing the standards and guidelines for gunshot residue analysis. I am a professional member of the American Academy of Forensic Scientists, the Mid-Atlantic Association of Forensic Scientists, the Southern Association of Forensic Scientists, and the American Society of Trace Evidence Examiners.
Have you testified as an expert witness in gunshot residue analysis before?
Yes,
How many times?
approximately 52.
And where have you testified?
I have been court qualified in 5 states, Michigan, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and North Carolina, and also in federal court.
Your Honor, at this time I would tender to the court Mr. Freeling as an expert in gunshot residue analysis.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Can you please explain what gunshot residue is and how it gets into the world?
Gunshot residue is any debris from the discharge of a firearm. In the trace unit, we are looking primarily at the primer portion of this residue. And the primer portion of gunshot residue consists of 3 main elements: lead, antimony, and barium. And when a gun is fired, gases are released from any free opening in the weapon. When these gases hit the air, they solidify in these tiny particles, and these particles then fall into the hands, clothing, or immediate area of the discharged weapon. And when those 3 elements fuse into one of these single particles, it is said to be characteristic of gunshot residue, and those are the particles you look for in the lab.
And how is it possible for gunshot residue to get on someone's hands without them ever touching a gun?
Yes.
How?
When a gun is fired, I said those gases, they expand. They can expand up to several feet. So you can get gunshot residue in your hands by firing a gun, being in close proximity to a gun that was fired, or handling a weapon that has gunshot residue on it.
Could it also get on your hands by touching something else that has gunshot residue on it?
Yes. Think of gunshot residue as dust on a table. If I wipe it off, I can eliminate it. So if I come in contact with this table and has gunshot residue on it, I can transfer it to myself.
What factors, if any, affect a gunshot residue test?
There's two main factors, activity and time. Like I said, gunshot residue can be easily removed, so the longer you go from firing of a weapon to collection of a gunshot residue kit, the gunshot residue can be easily removed. If you wash your hands, you can remove it. If you come in contact with anything, you could transfer the particles to that item. So it can be easier removed from the hands.
And how is, physically, how is a person tested for gunshot residue?
They are tested with, it's called a gunshot residue collection kit. It's a two-part collection kit. There's cotton swabs with a concentrated nitric acid solution, and then there's adhesive lifts, which are about the size of a dime, and they're sticky tabs. And the backs and the palms are collected from each hand.
And once you receive a gunshot residue kit in the lab, what do you do with it?
Usually kits come with a data collection sheet, and so I will get the kit from our evidence control unit. I'll make sure everything is in a sealed, proper manner, and then I'll open the kit and I'll look at that data sheet to determine whether the person did wash their hands or whether the kit was collected 4 hours after the firing of a weapon, and these factors determine whether I'm going to analyze the kit.
And on the 23rd of August 2013, did you receive a gunshot residue kit that had been submitted for analysis by Anita Smith, the evidence custodian for CCBI?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes, ma'am.
Placing in front of you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 36, an item that is already in evidence. In looking at that, do you recognize it?
I do.
And how do you recognize it?
When evidence comes into the laboratory, it's assigned a laboratory case number and an item number, and so there's a barcode with that information on it. And then I also, when I receive the evidence, I put my initials, the date I received the evidence, and then every gunshot residue kit I analyze gets its own unique code.
And when did you work on this gunshot residue kit, State's Exhibit 36?
The laboratory received the kit in August of 2013. I examined the kit in December of 2013.
Now, inside of the kit, how many swabs did you receive?
So the cotton swabs, there's 2 cotton swabs per examination. So the right back, right palm, left back, and left palm have 2 cotton swabs for each area examination. And then there are 2 cotton swabs as a control to show that the gunshot residue was not, there was no contamination within the kit.
And did you test all 4 of the swabs, well, actually all 6 of the swabs, to see whether there was gunshot residue present?
Yes.
And how do you do that testing?
So the cotton swab portion is examined first, and I digest those cotton swabs into a solution, and I run that solution looking for those elements of lead, barium, and antimony in their individual forms. And then if the levels meet or exceed our threshold guidelines, I'll then take those corresponding adhesive lifts and put them on a high-powered microscope to look for those actual particles that are characteristic to gunshot residue.
And so when you examined the swab from the back of the right hand of Mr. Perez, what did you find?
On the right back, I found elevated levels of barium, lead, and antimony. And so I proceeded to run the right back adhesive lift.
And what did you see on the right back on the adhesive?
I did not find any particles characteristic of gunshot residue.
And on the palm of Mr. Perez's right hand?
On the left palm, I had elevated levels of lead, barium, and antimony on the cotton swabs, and so I ran the corresponding adhesive lift.
And what did you find on the adhesive lift?
And I found 2 particles that were characteristic to gunshot residue.
So on his left palm you found gunshot residue?
That's correct.
And on the, what about the right palm?
The right palm and the left back did not show elevated levels of the lead, barium, and antimony individually, and so I did not examine them. I just examined the right back and the left palm, and whenever we do find particles characteristic to gunshot residue, we then stop our analysis.
So the end result of your testing would be that in testing the adhesive lifts, there was no gunshot residue on the back of his right hand,
Correct.
and there was gunshot residue on the palm of his left hand.
That's correct.
Now, would it would be consistent, would it not, that if a person held a gun in
Objection to the leading, Your Honor.
Overall.
in their right hand and fired it, that you would expect normally there to be gunshot residue on the back of their right hand?
In a perfect environment, yes. Like I said before, gunshot residue is easily transferred, so if you do fire a gun with your right hand and then your hands come in contact with each other, you could transfer those particles from hand to hand.
And having gunshot residue on the left palm of his hand would indicate to you what?
Again, it would be the same thing. It would indicate that they could have been holding the weapon, but all I could say is that I found the gunshot residue particles on the left palm. I can't tell you how they got there.
You did say, however, that you could do it by touching some object which had come into contact with gunshot residue.
Yes.
For instance, if you'd been shot in the back of the neck and put your hand up to it, you could
Objection to the leading,
transfer
Your Honor.
Overall.
gunshot residue from the back of your neck where you'd been shot onto your palm.
That's correct.
Now, there was no gunshot residue test submitted to you from the defendant in this case, correct?
No.
And do you have some protocol concerning the taking of gunshot residue samples from live people?
Yes, from individuals who are alive, we do not take gunshot residue kits if they are collected after 4 hours from the time of the shooting.
Why is that?
Studies have shown that even after 2 hours, most gunshot residue is easy to remove from the hands, and it's from the activity that I mentioned earlier.
So if someone touched something, changed their clothes, washed, took a shower, any of those things would remove it?
That's correct.
I have no other questions.
Witness with the defendant.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Agent Freeling.
Good morning.
You said that hands, clothing in the immediate area are where you would suspect to find gunshot residue particles if a gun is fired, correct?
Yes.
And obviously the hands being the primary point of contact whenever a gun is being fired, correct?
That's correct.
When you say that, you said, just to clarify, once you found the gunshot residue on his left palm, you didn't continue to search any further or test the other swabs for gunshot residue?
That's correct.
Because, is there a reason behind that? Like, why not test the right palm still and continue on with the...
It doesn't change the conclusion of my report. If I find particles, characters of gunshot residue, it's going to be the same conclusion. And being that gunshot residue can be easily transferred from hand to hand, it really doesn't 100% show that, you know, the meaning that, okay, we found gunshot residue on the palm versus the back.
Is there any way that you can say you can't say where the gunshot residue came from, but is it most likely that there was can you say most likely or put any kind of degree on that? If a gunshot residue is found on their hand, where that gunshot residue came from?
All I can say is that either came from the firing of a weapon, being close proximity to a discharged weapon, or touching something that came in contact with gunshot residue.
And are you aware that perhaps a grazed bullet wound would leave gunshot residue where a person could then touch that? And then have you had any experience with that from a grazed bullet wound?
Gunshot residue does travel with the bullet, so anything that the bullet comes in contact with, you could find particles, characteristics of gunshot residue.
Have you had any experience with that yourself?
I've never been shot.
I mean, excuse me, I hope not. I haven't either. In all of your examinations, and have you ever found the case where you tested, do you ever test a grazed wound to see if there are particles left there?
No, I've never tested a specific wound on a body.
Okay.
I've tested items that have bullet holes in them,
Okay.
like curtains, clothing,
Okay.
etc.
Okay. And for as far as you saying that you were not able to tell, and talking to other experts, any expert worth anything, any GSR expert worth anything is not going to be able to tell you exactly where the gunshot residue came from, correct?
That's correct.
But you just know that you located the gunshot residue on Jose Perez's left palm.
That's correct.
And the fact that your information later told you that Jose Perez had passed away and had not been moved and obviously was not active, that gave you ability to conduct this test for gunshot residue at a later point in time because he hadn't washed his hands, he hadn't moved around, he hadn't touched anything else, correct?
That's correct. The 4-hour policy we have for living people, we do not have it for victims just because they cannot do any physical activity because they are deceased.
So even these hours later, they were still able to pull the gunshot residue off of his hands, and you were able to find that on his left palm.
That's correct.
You mentioned that you found, you said 2 particles specifically to the state. Does that change your analysis whatsoever? Is 2 a high number, a low number? What does that mean? Or it just means that you found
It just
gunshot?
means I found 2 particles.
And when you're saying you found 2 particles, you have to find the barium, antimony, and lead. You have to find those in the combination and see the, I guess, the appropriate spikes in order to indicate to you that it is gunshot residue.
Yes.
And lead being the highest spike.
Yes.
No further question, Your Honor.
Ready, Rack?
No other questions?
Thank you, sir. You can stand down. Any objection to him being released from this thing?
Not from the state.
No, Your Honor. Thank you, Agent Freeland.
For that state.
The state would call Vanessa Gant to the stand. Your Honor, may I approach the witness stand?
Yes, ma'am.
Place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you, ma'am. Come here, I'm gonna see.
Witness reading.
Ma'am, if you would please state your name for the court.
Yvonne Vanessa Gant
And Ms. Gant, where do you live?
in Youngsville.
And are you married?
Yes, ma'am.
And who is your husband?
Barton Gant.
Okay. And do y'all have any children?
Yes, ma'am.
And how old are your children?
One is getting ready to be 13, and I have a 9-year-old.
Okay, and a boy and a girl?
Yes, ma'am. My 9-year-old is the boy.
Okay. What kind of work do you do, Ms. Gant?
I'm a dental assistant.
And how long have you worked as a dental assistant?
About 17 years.
Okay, and where specifically do you work now?
I have been working for Dr. Melissa Davidian for 11 years.
Okay. And did you go to school for that?
No, ma'am. I was in-office trained, what they call grandfathered in.
Okay. When did you move to North Carolina, or how long have you lived here in North Carolina?
I have lived in North Carolina for 17 years.
Did you know the victim in this case?
Yes.
And how did you know the victim?
He was my daddy.
And tell us, if you will, Ms. Gant, a little bit about your dad.
He was a very caring man, loved to help others, would be there for anyone at any time.
Where were you born? You said you moved to North Carolina 17 years ago. Where did you move from?
I moved from Florida, and I was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Okay, and is that where your father was from?
Yes, ma'am.
And when did he come to the United States?
It was in the 70s.
And did he live in Florida?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What year were you born in, Ms. Gant?
1974.
And tell me a little bit about your parents. How long were they married?
They were married for 42 years.
And where did they meet?
They actually met in elementary school.
And in addition to you, were there any other children in the family?
My brother.
And how were you the oldest child, or?
No, I was the youngest.
Okay. And is your brother still living?
No, ma'am. He died March 21st, 2013.
And how did he pass away?
He had a massive heart attack in my mother's arms.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about some of the, how many years were there between you and your brother?
We were 3 years apart.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about some of the health challenges he had as you were growing up.
My brother was diagnosed as a juvenile diabetic between the age of 8 and 9. He was just always insulin dependent.
And so what kind of stresses or concerns did that create for your family?
He was always babied a little bit.
Where in Florida did y'all live?
We lived in Central Florida,
What town?
actually Lake County.
Okay. And did you stay in the same house the whole time you were growing up?
Pretty
Tell
much.
us
We
a
moved
little
around
bit
just a
about
little
that.
bit.
And what kind of work did your dad do?
He did several things from what I can remember. I remember him being a parole officer.
Do you remember any of the other positions he had?
After he started to get a little sick, he kind of started picking up jobs, odds and ends. He was really unable to maintain a full-time job.
And when you say when he started to get sick, do you remember how old you were when you first became aware that he had some health problems?
I remember his liver transplant, and I remember him being sick prior to the liver transplant.
And if you know, do you know what caused him to have a liver transplant?
From what I understood, it had something to do with Agent Orange, maybe hepatitis C.
Okay. And do you remember what year it was that he had a liver transplant?
I believe it was around 1993.
You mentioned Agent Orange. Was your father in the military?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about that.
I do remember that just seeing pictures of him being in the Army. I actually still have those photos. And just kind of seeing him with his friends. So that's kind of how I put two and two. He never really talked about anything else.
How old was your dad when you were born?
Probably 20s.
Okay. And what year were you born in?
1974.
And do you know how old he was when he passed away in 2013?
64.
Okay. Did you ever see your dad drink alcohol?
No, ma'am.
Tell us a little bit about that.
From the time I was born, I remember, from what I remember, I don't remember ever seeing him drink a drop of alcohol. My mom would occasionally have wine or, once I became of age, we would go out to dinner and I would have a drink, but he would always get a Diet Coke.
Do you remember, or were you aware growing up that your dad had had a problem with alcohol as a young man?
Yes.
And how did you know that?
Just in conversations, and he's always attended AA groups, and he would have AA groups at our home where they would come back and have coffee at our home. I remember that as a child.
And when you say he attended AA groups, how often would he go to an AA meeting?
I remember him going at least once a day.
And that was as a child growing up?
As a child, I don't really remember. As an adult, I remember more him once a day.
Okay. Did you and did your parents ever have arguments?
Well, sure.
Tell me a little bit about that.
They would argue. Sometimes it would be financial. I love my mother, but she likes to hoard sometimes money. And he would spend his money on the bills, and maybe he would ask her for gas money or something. And they would argue a little bit about it, and, she would give in, but nothing major. If he got really upset, he would just get in the car and go.
And when you say he would get in the car and go, when they would have arguments or confrontations, was it his normal habit to, if he got really angry, just to leave?
Yes.
And generally when he left, where would he go, if you know?
A lot of times when I would just talk to him, maybe that evening or the next day, we would just come in conversation that he would usually go to an AA meeting.
Okay. Did you ever see your dad become physically aggressive towards your mom?
Never.
What about verbally aggressive in any way?
I mean, just in anger, but nothing that would shoot a red flag, even as an adult, to me.
And when you say anger, was that part of maybe the arguments over money they were having?
Yeah.
What about towards you and your brother? Was your dad ever physically aggressive?
No.
Or violent towards you?
No, never.
What about verbally aggressive or violent in any
No,
way?
never.
What brought you to North Carolina?
My husband's dad actually lives here. So I was recently divorced in Florida, and I met my husband, and we just wanted a new start.
And you had met your current husband in Florida, is that right?
Yes.
And y'all have been married now for how many years?
In December, it'll be 16 years.
And so how long were you living in North Carolina that your dad and mom continued to live in Florida?
I believe she retired, and they actually moved up when my son was born in 2006.
And between the time you moved up here and the time that your parents moved up here to live in North Carolina, would they come to visit from time to time?
Yes.
How often did they generally make that trip up?
At least several times a year, and if not, then I would travel down to see them.
Would you take the children with you when you would go?
I would take my daughter with me.
When your dad would come up here to North Carolina, would he attend AA meetings?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I remember him going, like I said, at least once a day, and for some reason the Camel Club stands out to me because I remember him talking about that.
At some point, did your parents decide to move to North Carolina?
Yes.
And what brought them to North Carolina?
My children.
How were your parents, or how was your dad involved in your children's lives?
When my daughter started elementary school, he would take her to school and pick her up from school. Before that, he would take her to preschool. She would go a half a day, and he would go pick her up and then take her to what she would call the candy store. And
Candy store.
he would take her by to go get candy every day. And she just called it the candy store because they went to the same store every day.
Right. And how many years did that kind of continue where he was picking up your daughter?
It stopped maybe second grade, and shortly after, it totally stopped after him and my mom separated.
Did you ever see your dad lose his patience with your daughter
Oh, no.
or become verbally or
No, he
physically?
loved my children.
You mentioned that he separated from your mom. When did that happen?
I believe it was April maybe of 2009.
Okay. Do you remember during the time that your parents were living in Florida and here in North Carolina, what was going on with your brother?
My brother very quickly started to deteriorate. After 2 years, he completely lost his eyesight, his kidney function. He was in dialysis 3 times a week.
Who would take him to dialysis and to doctor's appointments and things?
He lived with my dad for a short time. He did. When he was put in an assisted living facility, they would take him back and forth, and then he eventually moved in with my mom, and she would take him.
And so when your parents moved up here to North Carolina before they were separated, was your brother living with them?
Yes.
Once your parents separated, who did your dad, or where did your dad begin to live?
I'm not really sure.
And was that because they were picking up your daughter? And
No, they lived fairly close. They were keeping my son, so I would go by and pick up my son and, maybe have dinner with them. He would always cook, and we would stay and eat dinner.
And when you say they lived fairly close, tell us.
Maybe 2 miles.
Your son was with them full-time then instead of being in daycare?
Correct.
As a child? How many years prior to your father being murdered was that your son was staying with them during the day?
With both of my parents until he moved out.
Okay. You mentioned that once he moved out, you didn't see him as often. How often would you see him?
I would say maybe once a month.
And was there a reason why he would come to see you at least once a month?
No, he would just sporadically just kind of show up and say he wanted to see the kids and to see how we were doing.
Did he ever come to see you at your office?
Yes.
And why would he do that, or why would he be there?
He would come once a month and drop off alimony for my mother.
Did he continue to pay alimony throughout the time he was living and they were separated?
Yes.
You mentioned some of the things that your dad liked to do in terms of helping with your children, watching your children, and cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit more about what kinds of things did your dad spend his time doing?
If he wasn't at AA meetings or with his AA friends having coffee, he loved to work in the yard. He had a riding lawnmower, and he would just cut the grass and get my husband to help him with anything else that needed help with, like trees or something like that in the backyard. And he was a stickler about his vehicles. They had to be top-notch clean.
Tell us a little bit about your observations of your dad's health in the last few years of his life.
I could tell, especially with photos, when I look at photos, he just was starting to deteriorate a little bit. He would just be more pale, and he just didn't have the energy that he used to have, even though he tried to hide it very well.
And talk to me a little bit about your dad trying to hide his health problems.
Until a few days ago, I had no idea how sick he was. I knew that he had some illnesses, but I didn't know how sick he was.
And a little bit about kind of your dad's demeanor, or was he kind of a happy-go-lucky?
Oh, he was always a happy-go-lucky. It didn't matter what it was. He would just go on with his day, and he always would find a solution to a problem. He was always very optimistic.
Did you have occasion to see the your father, with the defendant?
Yes.
And how often were y'all all together?
Not very often. Maybe 5, 6 times at the most. I don't really remember.
Did you ever have occasion to see your dad be physically or verbally aggressive towards her?
No, ma'am.
I believe, talking a little bit about some of the limitations that your dad had, were you aware that, did he typically wear his seatbelt?
No, he did not.
And why didn't he wear his seatbelt?
He actually got a doctor's note or letter from his doctor stating that he could not reach over and grab the seatbelt and click it because of the weakness in his hands.
And so you were aware of that?
Yes, because he carried it around in the vehicle in case he got stopped.
And in terms of getting around and walking, and can you describe for us how your dad was able to get around?
He was able to walk some. He was very limited. His feet would start hurting. He would tell me, his legs were starting to go numb. He needed to sit. Generally, when he came over to visit, he would sit.
And you mentioned that your dad had a riding lawnmower. When they first moved to, I guess y'all were living in Youngsville, right?
Yes.
What size yard did they have? Or tell us a little bit about their house
It was
there.
a smaller yard. It was a small home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, maybe 750 square feet. It was very small.
When he moved to Wake Forest, moved first to Rollsville and then to Wake Forest, did he take his riding lawnmower with him?
Yes. I remember him getting it at some point from that house.
You've talked a little bit about your father's involvement in AA. Did you become aware at some point that your dad was helping others who might be involved
Yes.
in AA? And how did that come to your attention?
After my parents separated, I didn't really see my dad, but at his funeral, I kept it private due to everything that was going on, and his AA friends came, and when they spoke very highly of my dad. One of them mentioned that he helped him recover, and somebody actually left a chip of their AA in his ashes, which I've kept.
And what is a chip, an Alcoholics Anonymous chip, if you know?
From my understanding, it's months or weeks that they are sober. I remember it was a blue chip. I don't know exactly what that meant, but it was a blue chip that someone left.
Were you aware if your dad had ever gotten any chips?
Yes.
And how did you know that?
I've seen them, and he actually had a necklace made with the AA sign on it, and it was white gold. It had like a nugget, and then it had the AA sign in the middle. He was very proud of that.
Do you remember do you remember any celebrations or of years of sobriety, anniversaries involved in AA that your dad celebrated?
Yes, I specifically remember one going to a church in downtown Youngsville. I want to say maybe it was his 38th year of sobriety, and they had a cake, and my daughter was there, and I'm not really sure if my husband was there. I don't know. My mom was there at the time, so they were married at the time.
This was prior?
So this was prior to, yes.
Do you ever have reason to believe that your dad fell off the wagon, so to speak, or started to drink?
No, not at all.
Never heard your mom say anything about him drinking?
Oh, no, and she would have definitely said something.
Was your dad left-handed or right-handed?
He was right-handed.
At some point, Ms. Gant, did you become aware that your dad had been killed?
Yes.
And tell us, if you would, please, what you remember about that.
The last time I saw him was on June 13th. He came over, and he wanted me to drop the kids off with him Friday morning, and I had to work, and I had an early case, so I told him summer the kids don't want to get up. He said, I'll see them in 2 weeks, because my family was heading out to Louisiana so my husband could spend time with his mom.
So let me just slow you down just a little bit.
Okay.
June 13th, that would have been a Thursday.
Correct.
I believe. And when you say your family was heading out to Louisiana, you and your husband and the children, or just?
No, it was just my husband and my son and daughter.
Okay. And so, where did your dad come to? Was it at your house?
It was at my home. My husband had actually purchased a new motorcycle not long before that, and he wanted to come see it and to see the kids.
And did he actually see the kids that day?
Yes.
Was there anything unusual about that visit with them?
We sat down and talked, and he talked to me a little bit about the frustrations financially at his home, and he had mentioned that Joanna and Michelle were not happy with him because he was not paying her car payment any longer. But that was pretty much the extent of our conversation about that. Because I'm sorry.
Had you been aware that he had been paying car payments for Michelle, for the defendant's daughter? At
No,
that
ma'am.
time? Okay. On that 13th, did he say anything to you other than that about the relationship with the defendant?
Correct. I didn't really like to talk about their relationship, and we would just find something else to talk about.
Did y'all make plans to see each other again when your family got back from Louisiana?
Yes, he wanted to spend some time with the children, take them to the YMCA swimming and things like that.
Had your dad grown up swimming in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Great. When did you first find out, or how did you first learn that something had happened with your dad?
It was Saturday night, which
When
is...
you say Saturday night, that would be June 15th?
Yes, June 15th. I received a text message from his phone between 8 and 9 o'clock that night stating that he was leaving, going to Florida. He does not have his phone, but he will contact me when he gets there.
Was there anything unusual to you about that?
Yes. Number one, he did not take his phone with
It would be
him.
unusual for him not to take his phone?
It would be very unusual for him not to take his phone
And
with
so in
him.
this text message, he had indicated to you that he was not taking his phone?
Correct.
Basically, don't contact me, I won't have my phone, that kind of thing?
Correct.
Okay. What else about it struck you as unusual?
That he would just leave without saying goodbye to us or to his grandchildren or anything like that, especially that late at night.
Did you receive a text at some point after that from the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And tell us about that.
I received a text message from her stating that he was drinking and hanging out with people that were doing drugs and that he needed to leave.
And did you think there was anything unusual about that?
Yes, because that was not his character at all. That was not him.
Okay. Did you receive any further texts from the defendant?
I replied back to
further communication about what had happened to your dad?
I replied back to her and just asked her why and why didn't they come to us for help? You know, we're family, and that was pretty much the end of the conversation. At that point, I just became angry and just didn't want to discuss it. Like, I was done.
Where were you when you first got these text messages, one from your dad's phone and then from the defendant?
Actually, because my husband and children left, my birthday was Tuesday, June 18th, and me and a couple girlfriends got together to have a slumber party. So the first text message I received from my dad's phone, I was actually at Granite Falls. And the other text messages I received, I was actually in what they consider Lewisburg with my friends at a home.
At some point, did the defendant in this case tell you that your dad was going to a rehabilitation facility in Florida due to an alcohol relapse?
I believe that was in that first message that she had sent me.
Did you find out that that was not true?
Yes.
And tell us when you found that out.
I received a phone call about 10:30 on June 16th. I usually don't answer unknown numbers, but considering that my dad supposedly left, I answered it thinking it was maybe him in a hotel room or something to that effect, and it was actually a detective on the other line. Go ahead.
And what did you find out?
He asked me just some personal questions, where my mom was, did I have any siblings, was anyone at home with me, things like that, and then he said he needed to come out and speak with me.
And this was June 16th, that was that Sunday night?
Yes.
Okay. Was that the first you had heard that something might have happened to your dad?
Yes.
And do you remember who the detective was who came out and spoke to you?
I do not. I remember he was just helping them with the case, and he was maybe a juvenile detective. My husband had seen it on the app that he uses to catch up with the news, and he was in Louisiana. He contacted one of our good friends who lives 2 houses down, and he came over and sat with me and waited.
And who was that?
Mike Oliver.
Okay. And when you said that your husband said seen something on the app, there was some initial reports in an attempt to identify the victim. Is that the
That's the first thing.
that
That's the first thing he saw, and then he saw my dad's name once the body was identified.
Okay. Tell us about you receiving the death notification. What kind of things went through your mind? And
It's just a surreal moment that you don't ever think that's going to happen to you. And all I could think about was my children. My dad got to see me grow up. He walked me down the aisle, and my children deserve the same thing.
I assume your children were close with your dad because of all the time he spent with them.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about, if you need just a minute. It's okay.
Okay.
Okay, there's some Kleenex there in the corner. We talked for a minute about your dad and having his phone. How, were you familiar with whether your dad used a computer much or had access to a
He
computer?
did a little bit.
Tell us what you knew about that.
I remember going to visit him at his home in Wakefield and him showing me that, you know, how he got a Facebook account, and how he was seeing people that, I mean, I had known that grew up with in Florida, and just things like that. But that was pretty much the whole gist of it. And he never was computer savvy.
And are you on Facebook?
Yes.
Okay. Did you and your dad communicate much on Facebook?
No, we did not.
Mostly by telephone?
Yes, and mostly by text, because I was impressed that he actually started texting.
How long prior to him dying had he started texting, if you remember?
I would say maybe 6 months or so.
Were you aware that your dad volunteered at the VA?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
He actually volunteered when he lived in Florida as well for the VA there in their medical records department, and I believe he came up to do the same thing. It took him a little bit to actually get in the door to do it, but it was just something that he was proud of doing.
That generally went along with him trying to help other people, is that?
Yes.
You know, if I can have one moment.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other volunteer work that your dad did?
He did a lot with AA. That's why I said it would really surprise me that he left without his phone. His phone would ring. Even some people that spoke at his funeral would say his phone would ring. He would call them 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to go get someone that either relapsed or go take them to a detox center or something to that effect. So that's why it really surprised me that he was leaving without his phone as well, because he was always on it.
And would that have been with the Healing Place here in Wake County, if you know?
It could have been. I'm not really sure about that.
But he would often be called upon to help take somebody to dry out, basically.
Yes.
Is that right?
And he would always recruit someone if he could get a hold of them.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have no further questions at this time.
Witness, please. And
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Gant. I just have a couple of questions for you, ma'am. You weren't ever aware that your father was ever an attorney or an assistant district attorney or anything like that, were you?
No, sir.
And were you ever aware that your dad was very rich and was supposed to inherit a fortune or anything like that from people in Puerto Rico?
I had heard something about that, but I didn't inquire and didn't follow up with it.
And your parents separated when, I guess you were an adult, correct?
Yes.
And I think the misconception is that it doesn't hurt when you're an adult and your parents get separated, but it still hurts, correct?
No matter what age, of course.
So therefore, you and Miss Madonna never built a rapport or
No.
buddy or anything like that?
No.
And
We
I
were
think
civil.
You were civil. And you did that because your father was liking her. They were in a relationship. They were married, and he was spending time with them and their kids, so it would behoove you all to be civil to each
Well,
other.
sure.
And she was civil to you, and I think he even told the deputies that she tried to do more, or I guess be closer to you, but it just wasn't going to work out that way.
Yeah, I mean, she tried to get my kids involved in pageants and things like that, but
And that just wasn't something you were interested in.
no.
All right. And we've heard a lot about AA through these past couple of weeks, and you said your father attended meetings daily.
Yes.
And that's, and are you aware that sometimes with AA, there are meetings multiple places daily?
Oh, yes.
And sometimes your dad would attend multiple meetings in the same day.
Yes, he may go in the morning, he may go in the evening.
And that's not, that may sound weird to us, but it's not weird for AA people to do that
No,
kind
it's
of
not
thing.
unusual.
And so you're also aware that sometimes people relapse even if they've been in AA, in the program for a long time.
Sure.
And just depending on stressors that happen in people's life as relapse, they say relapse is a part of your recovery. It happens, and they're there to be supportive of one each other and carry each other through it, correct?
Correct.
And everyone would say your dad was a very supportive, caring guy. There's
Absolutely.
nothing. Do you know what your dad did in the Army or how long he was in the Army?
I do not. He never spoke about it.
And you're aware that your dad would borrow money from people sometimes and end up not paying them back?
Yes.
Do you know why that was? Had it been a lifelong thing with him?
Not that I recall, and no, I don't know why.
And when the officers came and talked to you about Miss Madonna, you even told them that you never saw any real problems between them either, correct?
Correct.
And you would drop even though you and Miss Madonna and her family didn't have that much interaction, you'd still drop your kids off over there and let them see their granddad and
I would never drop them off. I would always stay with them.
stay with them.
Mm-hmm.
And you said your dad ended up picking up texting, and you guys would text, and that's how you guys would communicate.
Sometimes, yeah.
How often would he text with you?
I don't know. I mean, it wasn't like a daily thing.
Okay. What kind of phone did he have? Do you remember?
The last phone I remember him having was like a Motorola.
Okay. Was it like a cheap flip phone? Or
No, it wasn't.
Okay. Was it a touch screen or anything like that?
It was similar to Joanna's.
Okay. And you said your dad liked to do work in the yard, and his big thing, I think other people have said it, every car in the house had to be clean, spick and span, clean all the time.
Yes.
You said your brother was living with Joanna and Jose for a while in their home, correct?
Yes.
And you go over there to see?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, thank you, ma'am.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our morning recess. At this point, during this time, it is your duty not to talk among yourselves about this case. Do not to talk to the parties, the witnesses, or the lawyers about anything at all. It's further duty not to talk to anyone else, to allow anyone else to talk with you, to say anything in your presence about this case. Avoid reading, listening to any accounts of this trial. Stay away from smartphones, any other materials as it has anything to do with this trial, and do not form or express an opinion about this case during this time. In fact, while everyone else in the court remains seated, I'll excuse the 13th of you and ask that you return and assemble in the jury room at 25 minutes to the hour of 12. That's your excuse.